Hey everyone, Chang here. This is a skill building video series. For today's topic, we're going to go over how to graph basic inequalities. Here are examples of basic inequalities. One, we have an x is greater than 1 versus x is greater than or equal to 1. Now, we know that this x is greater than 1, x is greater than or equal is slightly different. Now, before I even talk about how to graph these two and the slight difference, I want to introduce notations to you. These are common ways of representing inequality in terms of graphing, and there's two of them. The first one, it uses sort of like a dot notation. They use little circles or dots, and one of them is going to be filled in, whereas the other one is not. There's a difference. The one that's filled in, it's included or inclusive. What it means is that whatever number this is on top of or in relation to, you're including that number itself. Whereas if it's empty, right here, you're going to be excluding that particular number. Okay, so this is including, this is excluding. Now, sometimes they don't use this at all. Sometimes they will use sort of a parentheses and bracket notation. They would use bracket right here on one side or the other as include, whereas they would use parentheses on one side or the other to mean exclude. Well, let's just make it red so that it's consistent. Exclude. Okay, so these are the notations I want you guys to follow. You will see these two common notations in terms of graphing. So let's just talk about this right here. We have x is greater than 1. Now, when we say x is greater than 1, we don't care about the 1 itself exactly. That's not what we're including. It's just all the number that's greater than 1. So if I were to draw a number line right here, we know that we have the center 0 and then we're worried about number 1, so 1 is right there. This one is excluding. We don't care about the 1 itself. We just want all the number that's greater than 1. So if I were to use the dot notations, we would use exclude because we're not caring about the 1. So we're going to be using an empty dot, which is going to be right here, and then an arrow right here. Now, if I were to use the exclude in terms of the parentheses bracket, it would be the parentheses. So I would use the parentheses, it would still be on top, and I just want you guys to see the difference, and the arrow right here. And that's basically the difference between these two. Now, if I were to talk about greater than or equal to 1, now the or equal means that it could potentially be 1 itself, not just all the number greater than 1, but the number itself. So in that case, I would be using include, right? So I'm going to erase these two, and then I'm going to use the include, and let's see the difference. Now, include in terms of the dots, we're going to have the dot right here, but we're going to have to fill it out to know that we are actually including the 1 itself. Now, when we're talking about the parentheses bracket, we're actually using the bracket now, and then the arrow itself. So that's how you would graph something like this, using the include and exclude, the two different notations. Well, let's look at a second problem. Here we have 3x is greater than or equal to 4x plus 2. Now, in this case, before we do anything, we need to solve it. You can't just graph it like that. We have to solve it so that it becomes basically x on one side of the inequality sign and then everything else on the other. And then we can work with it. Well, I'm going to just start working with this and hopefully you guys can follow along. First and foremost, we have a 3x and a 4x. I want to combine it so that only one side has the x. I really don't like negative signs, so it makes sense to me to just subtract 3x from here on both sides, and this will go away. This one will still be positive. So let's subtract the 3x, subtract 3x. This goes away like we hoped, so that's just basically 0. We have 0 is greater than or equal to 4x minus 3x is just x, or 1x. And we have a plus 2 that we haven't done anything with. Now I'm going to move the 2 to the other side, so I'm going to subtract 2. I'm going to subtract 2, right? This goes away. Now we have a negative 2 is greater than or equal to x. Okay, so that's what we would do if we were solving it. Now we want to graph it. Well, first and foremost, once again, we have our number line. We have 0 right here. And then now we're worried about negative 2. Negative 2. Let's just make it easier to see. All right, so negative 2 is right here. Now, x is everything that is on the smaller side. So in case it's confusing, remember that the inequality symbol, a way to remember is the larger side, the bigger, I guess you could say the alligator, whatever you want to call it, means that everything on this side is bigger and the smaller, the pointing side is a smaller one. So x is going to be everything smaller than -2. Here's -2. Everything smaller than negatives that way, right? Going -3, -4, so on and so forth. So this is well, -2 is greater than or equal to x, or x is going to be less than or equal to -2. So in this case, we're going to include the -2. So with the dot notation, we're going to do this. And we're including it, and everything smaller is going this way. With the bracket parentheses notation, we're going to include, so it's going to be a bracket, and the arrow would go this way. And that's how you would solve the second problem. For the remainder of the video, I'm going to refrain from giving explicit explanation, but just follow along. Now, remember, key things to pay attention to. The notation. Is it greater than or equal, less than or equal? Now, that would also let you know if you're including or excluding. So, let's begin. Thank you for watching this video on graphing basic inequalities. See you next time.